A second to get in. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to NAS Wildwood. Or should I say, hello, and welcome to the F-14 Calverton All Things Grumman presentation. Naval Air Station Wildwood. We have our pilot, Bubbles, F-4 Phantom, VF-33, F-14 Tomcat, VF-11 World Rippers, and we have Rob Todd, USS America, Catapult 3. Good evening, guys. Good morning. Hello out there. Let's get this going.
Good morning, everybody at NAS Wildwood. We are here as part of the F-14 All Things Grumman Calverton radio show. We are here to not only celebrate aviation as a whole, but we as a group are here to celebrate the F-14 Tomcat. Today, we have several different aircraft you guys can look at. We have everything from probably pre-World War II, World War II, all the way up to present-day aircraft. You guys came out, you guys love aviation, we love aviation. We're here to talk a little bit about our side of things and what we saw when we were active duty. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Once we're done, you guys will have a question and answer, and answer any question you guys want about aviation, the Navy, whatever you want to talk about. My name is Rob Todd. I drove from Wyoming to come here. I've got 15 years in the Navy. I originally came in 1990. Started my love of aviation when I was about 5 years old. My grandmother kept reading me books about Douglas MacArthur, Chester Nimitz, and I knew from a very young age I wanted to join the Navy. And then, you guys remember Black Sheep Squadron? I watched that as a kid religiously, and I would not pry myself away from the TV till that was over. And then 1980, a movie came out called The Final Countdown, and you guys remember that. Fell in love with the Tomcat from there. And 1986, a very lesser known movie called Top Gun or Bottom Rifle, something like that came out. And that put me in the recruiter's chair. And I went in and signed up when I was 15. I was too young. He said, get out of here. I said, how old do I need to be? He said, you need to be 17. I said, roger that. I'll be back in 2 years. And I came back, and that same recruiter was sitting there, and I depped into the Navy at that time. I joined the Navy originally. I wanted to be like this guy. I wanted to be a pilot, and walked in, and he goes, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to fly Tomcats. And when he got done laughing and got back into his chair, he said, what do you really want to do? I said, I want to fly Tomcats. And he goes, well, you got to be an officer to do that. At the time, I was going to use the Navy to go to college and then become a pilot. And then something that you need to be a pilot is 20/20 vision. And my eyes went to hell about the time I was 17. So that wasn't going to be a thing. But I joined the Navy in 1990. Since I couldn't fly them, I thought I could crash them. So I thought I'd be in air traffic control. And I went to boot camp. And they said, for some reason I was a good swimmer, and they told me I was going to do something in the water, so I became a rescue swimmer. I spent 2 years as a rescue swimmer. Things get out of control sometimes when you're in port and you're not on duty, and got in a little trouble, lost my security clearance, and they sent me to a ship. And they sent me to the USS America. And they said, you're going to work on the flight deck. And I said, well, I want the greasiest, dirtiest, nastiest job you can possibly give me. So they put me in the catapults. And it was my honor, but I got to launch guys like these. I launched Tomcats, I launched Intruders, I launched Hawkeyes, Vikings, anything that came with catapult. I was in charge of a 15-man CAT crew and a $40 million airplane when I was 20 years old. I absolutely loved my job, and but because of guys like that served in World War II, guys that served in Vietnam, they gave me the opportunity to serve as well. I served 15 years in the Navy, and I got out in 2005. But I'm going to transfer you over here to the most important person here. This is Terry Dailey. He is an F4 pilot and an F-14 pilot. He came into the Navy (101) as a RAG squadron, and then he was in VF-33 as F4 pilot, and then VF-11 as a Tomcat pilot. These guys, when I was on board a carrier, God was here, Tomcat pilots were here, and it's kind of the same for me today. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to Captain Terry Dailey. His call sign is Bubbles, and he'll be able to tell you all about why that is. Captain?
Woo! Tomcats!
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rob, and thanks for coming out. Welcome to NAS Wildwood. You know, I'm Terry Dailey, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Grumman story, and then I'll talk a little bit about mine. But first of all, let's put our hands together for our Tuskegee Airman, Dr. Eugene Richardson Austin, with us today.
Woo!
He himself is a piece of iconic American history, one that we all cherish, especially in Long Island, New York, which was home to the Tuskegee Airmen who trained at Roosevelt Field, which today is proudly a museum known as the Cradle of Aviation. Long Island truly is the cradle of aviation. After all, it's the birthplace of two aerospace companies, Republic Aviation and Farmingdale, New York, and of course the company that landed us on the moon, Grumman Aerospace, headquarters in Bethpage, New York. History notes, some of us might be able to remember this, but history notes that in 1929, America endured a Great Depression. Many businesses closed while others faced an uncertain future. It's kind of like the pandemic, I guess. To succeed, you truly had to not only believe in yourself, but to believe in your employees. As they say in the Navy, all hands on deck, as surely we will all go down together. It was in late 1928 at the Loaning Aircraft Company in Manhattan, New York, which was affectionately known as the Loaning Yacht Club due to its famous flying amphibious planes. There, three employees had a meeting and decided to start their own aircraft company. Those three men were Clint Trull, Jack Swerble, and Leroy Grumman. Less than 6 months later, a very small company opened its doors in Baldwin, New York. It would be known as the Grumman Aircraft Company. Each factory site on Long Island would bear the town name in which the manufacturing plant was located, along with the company's name as well. So Grumman Baldwin was born. Now, back in the early days of flight, many amphibs were damaged and in need of repair from being operated in extreme environments, and they weren't even on aircraft carriers. And so, with no contracts and a handful of employees, the newly formed Grumman Aircraft Company would soon get its first opportunity to impress when the Loaning Aircraft Company called for help in restoration of a loaning flying yacht. Leroy Grumman throws his car keys to his Hudson Super 6, I don't even remember that one, to Swerble and says, "Go to Manhattan and tow the loaning yacht back here to Baldwin with my car." They didn't get very far. As they were crossing the 59th Street Bridge from Manhattan to Queens, the police pulled them over. So it's 1930. Can you imagine what this defining moment in aerospace history must have looked like? Like I said, you have to believe in yourself and you have to believe in your employees. Those employees were known as Grummanites, a family of workers that truly believed in the company, but more importantly, they believed in each other. Reminds me of a fighter squadron, actually. Working hard together, they would get the Navy's attention fast, with their first design, which incorporated retractable landing gear.
Wow.
Went to the fleet in Grumman's first fighter, the Fifi-1. So each airframe for this contract was delivered either on time or ahead of schedule. What a concept. However, it's the second fighter contract that would put Grumman on the map. Again, introducing the world to yet another innovative design. The F-4F Wildcat was born with folding wings and, of course, retractable landing gear. The Wildcat also started a long legacy of Grumman cats. The Wildcat, the Hellcat, the Tiger Cat, the Panther, the Jaguar, which was the first Grumman aircraft to sweep its wings. The Cougar, the Tiger, and of course the Tomcat, which I proudly flew while serving the U.S. Navy, as Rob told you. So 8 years after the first flight of the Wright brothers, now we are going back in time. On a Tuesday, June 20th, 1911, at Huntington High School in Long Island, New York, a high school student, Leroy Grumman, gave his salutatory address called the Aeroplane, A-E-R-O-P-L-A-N-E. That's how they spelled it back in those days. In which he proclaimed, the final perfection of the airplane will be one of the greatest triumphs that man has ever seen. In just 40 years, Leroy Grumman, backed by his Grummanites, took us from 100 knots and cloth wings to computer-controlled automatic swept wings in the F-14 Tomcat, which could reach speeds in excess of Mach 2.5. Grumman would go on to build a total of 712 F-14 Tomcats. The Tomcat was mainly manufactured at Grumman Bethpage in Bethpage, New York. From there, the newly built fuselage and wings would be shipped to Grumman Calverton using either rail or 18-wheelers. It was normal to see wings and radomes and fuselages every day, it seemed, on the Long Island Expressway, as Grumman built many different types of airframes simultaneously for almost 3 decades. As they say, straight out of Calverton.
Yeah, baby.
Grumman Calverton was home to aircraft assembly at Plant 6 and flight tests at Plant 7.
Damn, this is getting me excited.
Usually 3 test flights is all it took to deliver a new Tomcat. 2 for the Grumman test pilots and 1 for the in-house Navy crews. It's scary to think how many parts go into a modern-day fighter. But an average Tomcat would have around 10 to 20 discrepancies reported post-flight when brand new. Many were just simple fixes like unruly hydraulic lines and such. Leaving Calverton with green bags in the cockpit, that's Navy pilots as opposed to Grumman pilots who wore orange flight suits, which is what bags refers to. But leaving Grumman, a new Tomcat would head to the fleet with plastic cellophane still on the seats. Imagine that, a new car smell in an F-14 Tomcat. The Big Cat entered service in the fleet with the gunfighters at VF-124 out at NAS Miramar in San Diego, California. The first delivery was on October 8, 1972. They were the first F-14 training squadron at the time. There they stood up the VF-1 Wolfpack and also the VF-2 Bounty Hunters. Those 2 squadrons were created just for the inception of the Tomcat, as the war in Vietnam was keeping the Navy pretty busy, to say the least. Within 4 years of the first flight of the Tomcat, the most advanced fighter in the world was loaded on the Big E, the USS Enterprise, CBN-65, America's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. And of course, they were immediately shipped off to Vietnam. The Tomcat quickly grabbed the world's attention with its 1,000-pound AIM-54 Phoenix missile, which was able to reach out over 100 miles. And this is at a time when most other missiles had a range of 15 to 20 miles. The world's greatest fighter also grabbed the attention of Hollywood, as Rob pointed out to us, with their silver screen debut with the Jolly Rogers of VF-84 on the USS Nimitz in the movie The Final Countdown. And then during the 1980s, well, you know what it is, Top Gun. Bottom rifle, says Rob.
Talk to me, Goose.
Yeah. Then in the 1990s, the F-14 makes a silver screen with the movie Executive Decision with no other than the Jolly Rogers of VF-84. And then there's the Navy-based TV show Jag, which had an F-14 pilot as a lawyer, which seems like an oxymoron to me, but that's but that's just the Hollywood side of it. The reality was long deployments in harsh, unforgiving regions, usually where CAT missions, combat air patrol, never seemed to end. Just like the heat you could see rising up off the deck of a 10-month, in the 10th month of a 6-month deployment. Crews we race past our port calls just to be on station sooner rather than later. The F-14's service with the United States Navy is historic, to say the least. I don't know, maybe you remember the bumper sticker, Tomcats 4, maybe a 0, back from the shoot down by VF-32 in 1989. The Tomcat here outside was last flown by the Jolly Rogers of VF-103. Its nose number is 112, and the Jolly Rogers call sign was Victory, so that airplane's call sign is Victory 112. Even though back in 1970 the Tomcat was originally designed to drop bombs as well as being the best dogfighter in the world, it wouldn't be until 1990 when it started to fill its air-to-ground capability and potential. So when the Tomcat first entered service, the Navy had the A4, the A6, the A7, and the F4, all of which could drop bombs. So I have dropped bombs, yeah. Even though I'm a fighter pilot. Indeed. Let's see, where was I? So the Navy passed on the air-to-ground capability at the time. The thought of a multi-role platform where one airplane could do it all just was beyond their imagination. But the Tomcat could do it all. By the mid-90s, the F-14 Tomcat had grown into to be America's most versatile fighter platform, especially with its fuel range. It would shine most in the FAC-A mission, which is forward air controller, close air support, so it was directly supporting our boots on the ground. In the late 90s, the Big Cat could now see in the dark. A new first for the Tomcat was the addition of night vision goggles, along with a lantern training pod used in the Tomcat, along with the digital flight control system. We're losing. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, it's back. So they had digital flight control system, DFCS, and that would keep the terrorists on the run into the 21st century. I'm almost done. Not yet. All our flight crews, the air crews, we've always thought we defended more than just American freedom. We like to believe we defended every last man, woman, and child on this planet so they may share the same passion that we had for life. So how about, can I get from the crowd a huge Fly Navy?
Fly Navy, woo!
Yeah, thank you. So now comes a really interesting part because they told me I could talk a little bit my career highlights, which Rob has kind of gone over. So I left high school, and first I was born. I entered the Naval Academy in 1966, and I was commissioned an ensign on June 3rd of 1970, right after graduation. And I had selected aviation for my service career. And so I had orders to flight school in October of 1970. So a little flashback to my first class cruise. When I was a midshipman, I went to serve on a destroyer in the role of a junior officer. The destroyer was a World War II ship, the USS Dailey, DD-713. Now they say that surface warfare eats its young, and I would have to say that's what that cruise kind of did for me. But there was two highlights of that cruise. First was when we pulled into Monaco, because we were in the Med, on the 4th of July, and I had the duty that day, which I wasn't too happy about, until Princess Grace came aboard, and I had to escort her through the whole ship. It was terrible. The next thing happened when our cruise was over on the destroyer, and they heeled us over to the USS John F. Kennedy. Now this is in the summer of '69, so I was on board the Kennedy when we first landed on the moon. That was awesome. But when I had been on the ship standing OD watches, we did a lot of plane guard where we'd follow the Kennedy around in case somebody went down, we could pick up the crew. And I was thinking to myself, that looks like a little bit more fun. I wonder what that's like. So when I got on the Kennedy, we were still out at sea before we pulled into Naples to get a flight home at the end of the summer. And I went down to VF-32, the same guys who shot down the Libyans. And they were flying Phantoms at the time, and I said, hey, can I get a ride in the back seat? And what could possibly go wrong? And they said, sure. And so they put me in a flight suit, the G-suit, and the helmet, and the mask. They stuck me in the back seat of a Phantom. I got a CAT shot. We did a whole bunch of whippoorwills. Airplanes came out of nowhere. Some guy came up, we got refueled airborne. We came back to the ship, went into the break, came around, landed on a trap. I was like, I don't know what just happened to me, but I want to do that again. and so I did. I got my wings in April of '72, which was about 6 months before the F-4 went to the RAG, so I was not going to fly that the first time. And then when I selected jets, and then I got F-4s, so I went to the East Coast to VF-11, the replacement air group, to learn how to fly the Phantom. And then was assigned to Fighter Squadron 33 on the USS Independence. And I made 2 deployments on her to the Med. Then I got orders back to the Naval Academy, where I served as a company officer. And it wasn't my first choice. I wanted to go someplace where I could fly. But they said they needed a TAC air guy to run the technical thing, because we had a mixture of officers from all surface, nuclear, aviation, Marines, so we could provide some input and guidance to all the midshipmen who were trying to make their own service career selections. So Rob told you my call sign's Bubbles. Needless to say, I did not give that to myself. That's not how it works. But when I went to Annapolis, I was in charge of the annual TAC air briefing to the sophomore class, youngsters we call them. And when I was there, I said, hey, nobody knows me here. I can work myself out of this call sign and get a new one. But for the presentation, I called back to the fighter wing and asked if I could get somebody to come up and make a pitch about what was going on in TAC air. And they said Captain Disher, who was commander of Fighter Wing 1, wanted to come up and give the presentation because, as it turns out, he had a son who was in the class who would be hearing the presentation. So my job was to introduce him, which I did, and I went down from the podium. He got up there, and he looks at me sitting in the first row, and he says, well, thank you, Bubbles. And so everyone knew. So let me see, there's a couple of administrative notes here. One last thing, though, I wanted to mention is that in addition to my wings and my flight jacket, I do have a couple other interesting souvenirs from my flying time in the Navy. One of them is the clock from the front cockpit of a VF-33 F-4, from which I ejected into the Atlantic Ocean just south of Ocracoke Island on April 9th, 1975. I have that clock mounted in my living room, and it stopped at the time of impact, which was 0931. Water temperature that day was 42 degrees. Oh. The other souvenir that I have is an F-14, U number 159610, which is on display at the Air and Space Museum's Udvar Hazy Center out by Dulles Airport outside of Washington. Baby. And that airplane was the airplane I flew my last flight on active duty on April 9th, 1982.
Is Tomcats in the Smithsonian?
No, it's painted up as a VF-31 bird, and
we can fix that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll have a rating card.
Put it back to the Red Rippers.
Yeah. So I was with the Rippers, as I was saying. I made a med cruise in F-4s on the Forrestal and then when we came back, we transitioned to the F-14, and we went aboard the Kennedy and went to the Med, went through the Suez Canal to the Indian Ocean. So I did get off active duty in 1982. I joined the reserves in Pittsburgh. I ended up with command of a unit that supported a communications station at Rota, Spain, so I had to do 2 weeks active duty every year on the southern coast of Spain. That was tough. And then I was in a unit that supported the Commander-in-Chief of Naval Forces in Europe, which we all got recalled during the first Gulf War. So they were based in London, so that wasn't bad duty either. So then in 1994, I retired as a captain. and which I am still to this day. I just wanted to say a couple other things about the F-14 Calverton, because you can find them on Instagram at the F-14 Tomcat Radio Show podcast, or even Discord and YouTube. They have 3 amazing radio show podcasts. The fleet shows are the official F-14 Tomcat Radio Show, Tomcat University, and also our community show, the Producer's Cut podcast. Thank you again for being here and putting up with me, and Grumman Aerospace, baby, fly Navy.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah! Woo!
Once again, to Paula Bubbles, it's great having you guys here. We'd like to open it up now to anybody who has any questions about either Bubbles' career or my career. Anybody got anything? Want to know anything more? What do you got, sir?
Why did he jump out of the Phantom?
Short, the question is, why did I jump out of the Phantom? Short answer, it stopped flying. As it turned out, we were, the guy who flew the airplane the day before me was the CEO, and he had griped it for some vertical pitch oscillations uncommanded. But let me back up. Does everyone here know what Navy stands for? That's it. Never again volunteer yourself. I was not scheduled to fly that day. When I got into the squadron, the guy who was supposed to take the flight called in sick, and it was an air combat maneuvering flight. Being a fighter pilot, I was like, yeah, I want that. So I did. So I wasn't supposed to fly. I ended up out there. We were fighting against some A4s. We were on the warning area just south of the Outer Banks. And we passed them at a high-speed head-on pass. So we went vertical. And probably at about 36,000 feet, the vertical turned into a uncommanded nose-down pitch, which stalled the airplane and put it into a flat spin.
Oh no!
And
Flat
we
spin.
couldn't recover from that. So the Rio ejected at 10,000 feet, and I pulled the handle at 5 and ended up in the water. Yeah, we weren't wearing our wetsuits that day because it was an ACM hop, and they're very restricted for your motion, and 42 degrees gets real cold real fast, let me tell you. They found me first after about 45 minutes, and I was in bad shape, and then they found my Rio about almost an hour later. A little boat came out from the Coast Guard station, and he couldn't get out of his raft. He was having hypothermia so bad. But we both survived. I'll see him again in a couple of weeks when we get together out at Reno for the air races. So it was good. But the key is, the reason I know what happened and the reason I have the clock is that the Navy and the Air Force lost a couple of F-4s to uncontrolled pitch over the Pacific Ocean where they couldn't recover the airplane. They looked for my airplane but couldn't find it in the shallow water off of Ocracoke Island. The Navy loss was on a touch and go off a carrier, and so they had it on video, and they could see that the stabilator, the tail section, went beyond the full aft stick position on the takeoff after the touch and go, and then it lost and it went into 10,000 feet, and they said, go back and find that F-4 down by Ocracoke. And they dragged it out, they found that the stabilator horn, which is a mechanical piece that connects the flight controls to the stabilator, had failed due to intergranular corrosion. There was a different, dissimilar metal bolt from the stabilator, and that uncommanded pitch that we experienced was a stabilator horn working its way free. And when it broke, the stabs went full leading edge down, because that's how they're aerodynamically designed. And when that goes down, the nose goes up. And so it was like I was in a flat spin holding the stick in my lap. We were never going to get out of that. So when I left the squadron and I rotated to Annapolis, my going away present was the clock. So that's what happened. Yeah. Back to you, Rob.
Anybody else got any questions? What do you got, man? You want to come up here? Is that for Bubbles or for me?
Damn. It was my bubbling personality, right? No. They had this thing on the ship called midraps, where after the day's flying, you go down and in your flight suit, and you could get a hamburger, a slider, and so we would do that. And because we wore flight suits all the time, there was lots of room. Are you following me? So it was my bubble belly, and this guy who stuck that with me, he decided he was going to have his call sign be Hawk. I said, no, I'm never calling you Hawk. You cannot give yourself your own call sign. So I'm Bubbles for life. Thanks.
Anybody else? Bubbles, I can tell you I can appreciate your 42-degree eject because I went through 2 Bud's Hell Weeks, and one of those water temperatures was 49 degrees, and it was unbearable. Unbearable. So 70 degrees below that is twice as cold as what you would think 49 degree water temperature. What do you got, man? I'm a gunfighter. I'll bet you he's a missile fighter.
Yes. So the Phantom didn't have a gun. It had a Sidewinder heat-seeking missile and a Sparrow radar-guided missile. So I was a missile guy back then, and that really changed your whole approach to dogfighting because you didn't want to get too close to the guy because you couldn't shoot him with a gun. The Tomcat had a gun and missiles. It had the Sparrow, the Sidewinder, and the Phoenix. So you could kill him way out, you could kill him in the middle, you could kill him from behind, or you could get in close and shoot him. So, and we used to do air-to-air gunnery, where an A4 would go out and trail a banner, kind of like at the beach when you see the signs. And we would fly a squirrel cage around where you pass them, you go up, and you come down, and you track and shoot and go. And we have 4 airplanes doing that. So you not only had to keep track of the target, you had to keep track of the other 3 airplanes in the mix, and then you had to try and hit the banner with your bullets. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, well,
I launched a couple banners, Terry, and when they launched off, you had the banner off the side of the Tomcat, and as it took off, that 400 feet of rope behind it. You had the shot line here, which you're not supposed to cross, but then you had another line back behind it. If you were to get even close to that rope, instant death, it would drag you off the ship with the aircraft. And I remember launching those banners, and as soon as the Tomcat takes off, all of a sudden, 400 feet of rope are following behind a 300-mile-an-hour aircraft taking off, climbing the altitude. Then that banner is snatched up off the flight deck. It's a pretty amazing thing. Then to watch him flying around shooting at that banner, it's really hard to express what that's like. Anybody else got any questions? Anybody? Anybody? Well, if you guys, our next up is going to be the last surviving Tuskegee Airman, which is going to be an honor for you guys to be able to talk to. When you guys are done with this, please come out and look at that absolutely beautiful Jolly Roger Tomcat out there. Come through our tent, see our squadron memorabilia. We have a bunch of cruise memorabilia in there. Bubbles and I will be happy to tell you stories of being active duty and some of the stupid things that we did and some of the smart things we did. To me, that aircraft is more than just a plane. It is a living, breathing animal with, instead of blood going through it, there's hydraulic fluid and jet fuel. It changed my life. It forced me to join the Navy, which was not really that hard of a thing, but it made my life a lot better. Hopefully you guys can go over and look at it, touch it, feel it. We're going to do a demonstration later on of how to launch it. Unfortunately, it won't start up because if it did, those bleachers will be launched about 3 football fields behind it. But if you guys could only hear the primal scream of a Tomcat, you would really understand what we're talking about. But please come out and visit us, come through our tent. We have a bunch of stuff for you guys can buy, you guys can look through, you don't have to buy anything. Come through and look at our memorabilia, our memories, and we'll be happy to share any questions, answers about the Tomcat and our careers. Thank you very much for being here.
Also,
can I say one thing?
sure. Bubbles will be signing autographs.
I want to give a big shout out
We'll give a shout out
to my friend here, Captain Alan
Oh.
Gregory, C-130 pilot, Vietnam, 4 years, 968 missions.
Talk closer.
And he's here to talk about it. My hero.
That is awesome.
Awesome.
Sorry he was Air Force.
Yeah, go out and see some real fighter squadron.
It's the same flag.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
All right, guys, that wraps it up. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll catch you guys outside. We'll do some more lives today.
Dr. Richardson game on.